So, as I mentioned, in the EVRC, we're talking to industry experts that are making things happen, and a big part of the conversation is where is public charging? What's happening with infrastructure? When you buy one of these cars, you test drive here at the expo, where do you fill it up at when you're not at home? And that conversation has led us to Matt Cranley. You were with BP Pulse and Director of North American Operations, is that correct?
Director of the network team.
There you go. Okay, so with respect to BP Pulse's efforts, I mean, you've got things like gigahubs that are coming in major cities like Boston, Los Angeles. What is happening from your perspective for what you're deploying out from BP Pulse's side to improve upon what drivers can see for charging away from home?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on, firstly. So BP Pulse is BP's EV charging business. We're growing our presence throughout the US in multiple cities and highways that connect those cities. What we're focused on to improve the customer experience is all about a fast, reliable, and convenient charge. So we're putting chargers at our gas stations. We've got a big gas station network across the US. BP sites, Thornton's, Arco, these are the BP brands, Travel Centers of America. So we're focused on level 3 charging, minimum of 150 kilowatt chargers, but mostly what we're putting out are 400 kilowatt chargers now. So trying to get people a really good state of charge in that 15 to 20 minute type time range.
Well, in conjunction with that, sorry, you guys were at I was at the LX ribbon cutting for your GigaHub in LAX.
Fantastic, yeah.
And one thing I think is really important is you have not just the chargers on site, you have covered chargers, you have awnings, you have a lounge with snacks and restrooms. These are elements of just the basics around. If I got to stop and charge for 15, 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more, I need to have a little bit of an amenity perspective going on. And it strikes me that was a big part. Even the Duarte location you just opened up had something similar. Was that really key to how you were thinking about it? It's not just the fact that you can plug in and fill up, but what is going to happen with the time that you're there as a driver? I think that's really important.
Exactly. I mean, the great thing about putting on our gas stations is they have those amenities there already. They've got restrooms, coffee, snacks, something to do while people are charging. But these larger sites, which we call gigahubs, if they're on land that doesn't have that, what a customer is going to do when they're charging. So you're right, both the LAX and Duarte, two big hubs in LA that we've just opened, have an amenity lounge. So vending machines, a place to sit, Wi-Fi, bathrooms for customers
Air
to use.
conditioning.
Yeah, in hot days, that's important.
No, honestly, it was a hot day when you did the ribbon cutting. I remember thinking, this is great. I can actually not just sweat the whole time. So.
Yeah, it's great because you don't have to sit there and run your AC the whole time, and you let the battery charge. You go in, you have some snacks, you get a rest. Yeah, that's great. So, one of the funny things that I heard one time, right, was EV's actually going somewhere when the oil companies start getting involved. So now that the oil companies are getting involved, how do you see that going forward? Do you see more involvement, less involvement? How do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, different majors have different strategies for how they're playing into EV. I think at BP, we see it as a really strong amenity to our existing sites that we have in the US. They're well set up for mobility, for customers to be able to come off busy roads, stop and either fuel with gasoline or have a charge. So I think the energy companies, the majors, have an advantage by having a lot of that real estate themselves versus other charge point operators who have to go out and find that real estate, negotiate with other landlords.
I think you bring up a good point, is that the brands that a lot of drivers have been accustomed to, whether you're in Europe or North America or beyond, is that you think of them as, well, that is the reliable brand I need for owning my car that makes my car work. And that's about the fill up. And so to that point, I think it took a while for the technology to kind of catch up to really being at a place where, I remember 10 years ago, people would say, no, we need to be putting fast chargers at gas stations. I said, well, realistically speaking, if you're buying an EV at the time, there's not a lot of EVs out there that can fill up near the same way as you can with a gas car. Someone that pulls up with a gas car is going to say, well, that car was here when I pulled up and I'm already leaving and they're still there. That is, to me, was a visual issue for EV ownership. But now with charging getting upwards of 250, 300, 400 kilowatt, the vehicles that can accept that type of power, you're back on the road in 10 to 15 minutes. Now that's finally where we're at. Do you think that was part of the strategy around just kind of waiting for the technology to catch up to make it a useful experience for people that were going to use your locations?
Yeah, I think in part, we've certainly not put any level 2 charging at our gas stations for that reason. We don't think it's
8 hours at a gas station is like, forget it.
Not what you want to be doing, no. But yeah, I mean, some majors have gone quicker, some majors have gone a little bit slower, but I think we've timed it well with waiting for the right hardware to deploy which customers need right now.
Now, one of the things that we've talked about all weekend is kind of branding, right, and marketing of the actual location. So what is BP Pulse doing to ensure that customers like myself that drive EVs know where to go at your stations?
Yeah, great. So we do have an app, the BP Pulse charging app, which you can use to locate, initiate, start a charging session, view your past receipts. So That's one way which customers find us. We're on the major platforms, Google Maps, PlugShare.
Chargeway.
There you go, good plug.
Bart and I've been talking for a while. We're getting you guys really integrated, so yeah.
Good, excellent. No, good you're talking about. He's a good guy. And then when we launch new sites, we do hyper-local marketing campaigns to ensure that customers can, get advertising sent to their phones where they know a new site's about to open up.
Well, one thing that it's noticeable about is the locations of GigaHubs, for example, is it really is, and oftentimes it's not just about drivers that need to go find a charge that can't charge at home. It's also about like Uber and gig drivers that are in those types of areas that they need to have that reliable location. If they're dropping someone off the airport or picking someone up, that seems like a big part of the strategy for what you're focused on, yeah?
Yeah, we think airports are going to be really well used and underserved at the moment for customers driving around. We do have one in Chicago, actually, by ORD Airport that's fully built. It's a 40 charge stall site, split with NACS and CCS charges, just waiting for ComEd to give us the energy, but that's coming soon.
That last asterisk of just, well, that's one thing too, is how, the time it takes to deploy a fast charging station of the size we're talking about, to put in one or two fast chargers, kind of like we saw 10 years ago, it's like, hey, we've got one and it's fine. We're talking about multiple. We're talking about anywhere from like 20 to 40 chargers at a single site. What is the time it takes to actually plan that out to get that done on behalf of drivers?
Yeah, it's a piece of string. It really depends on the location itself. Do we own the land? Do we have it ourselves? Do we have to go out and negotiate with the partner? That can take some time to get the commercials and terms and conditions sorted out. Then it can be a lengthy time to get power, depending on how constrained the grid is at that location. Permitting can be complicated, a little bit more complicated when you're putting EV as a standalone site as opposed to amenity to an existing site. Can be multiple review board sessions. So I'd say anywhere from probably 12 on the best case to maybe 24 months to takes to deploy a site, which is it's really long. You look at these sites and you're thinking, how is it taking that long? But there's a lot of process to go through.
Well, there's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, is there anything that BP is doing to try to limit that or shorten that time? Are you talking with government and local officials to try to shorten that time at all?
Yeah, I think where we've been trying to make the most inroads is on the utility side, working with utilities to really understand, help them drive in some ways our network strategy in terms of where do they see areas that have no constraint issues from the grid. So getting that kind of input really early on in a site planning process as opposed to finding a site, negotiating it, and then finding out, hey, we can't get power for 2 years. So utility engagement and advocacy we see as a really important step to making that process go faster.
Well, I'll go ahead.
Now, as far as utility engagement, is there any talk at all about establishing like solar or battery backup at the location sites? Because, we are talking large sites, right? When you do 20, 30, 40 chargers, that's a large site. That's a pretty good area that you can cover with solar panels. Is there any talks about that kind of stuff?
There is in our, we have a portfolio of sites called Travel Centers of America. It's a business we bought a couple of years ago that have about 300 large travel center truck stops across the country. Now those have a lot more space, really big parking lots. So there is one site that we're going to be putting battery storage and solar canopies on to trial that as a pilot.
Well, it's really, to that point, it's almost like it helps offset. You really have to have the right physical location to get the best amount of energy onto those panels, right? But also, to your point about the battery backup, this is even something where you can take advantage of lower price charging for those batteries from the utility to just have it, serve as a way to just ensure that you're not, again, overcharging. I think that's one thing is we're already seeing it sneak away a bit where some of this public charging costs are getting up to like 70 cents, 80 cents a kilowatt hour. That's starting to completely remove the cost-effective aspect of this. How do we mitigate that? Is it, again, geographically is really the hurdle, right? Is that the utilities in certain areas, they can either accommodate and serve that, or they might say, look, we're not even prepared for you to be here yet. How does that then translate into your planning process for where you put these stations?
Yeah, I think we do a couple of things to try and mitigate that. Firstly, we have time of use tariff pricing at some of our sites, so we try to encourage customers to come and charge at the times of day when it's cheaper for us to actually buy the power. So we're using that at some locations. Load management plays a big factor here. Many utilities have demand charges, which can be really costly. So we use our own software called Omega, which helps balance the load at an individual site to try and bring down those demand charges, which means we can on-sell electricity at a cheaper rate as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things it's sneaking up on us as an industry, not even just because of electrification for transportation, but also just energy needs in general. We talk about AI a lot, about what's going to happen in different physical regions and geographic regions about, okay, a data center goes in, a single GPU server stack uses about 130 kilowatts on a just 24/7, 365. That's akin to basically a charging station, well, a single charger you might have at one of your sites, and that data center has hundreds of those, if not thousands. So the utilities are grappling with that while also working with your teams and other networks around, okay, how do we plan this out? So, I mean, to your point about battery backup, this is where I really think that we need to be looking at kind of like every single checkbox we can look at for how do we leverage this technology. So all that to be said, are you seeing that we're breaking through on that and you're having better success with some of the utility alignment? Or do you still feel that we're still kind of spinning our wheels a bit and that it's going to take more time?
I think it's varied for which utility you work at, and I moved here from the UK 2 years ago, and there are a handful of utilities in the UK. So
yeah, we have a problem here.
You've got 3,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you would like to know about a utility, we've got a list for you.
Yeah.
No, actually, that brings up a good point. Not to cut you off, but we have retail energy in Texas as an example. But everywhere else, compared to the EU, it is really just about having. It's okay. This is a monopoly. This is your provider. How is that as a global company? How are you navigating that? I mean, that's a different animal for you to attack, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a good thing for utilities to have EV charging, right? It gets them more demand for their business. I just think some have, adopted, more streamlined processes than others. Wherever we work, it's key to just having a strong partnership, engaging them early, and having a kind of constant dialogue as we build out a site versus trying to make it quite transactional.
Well, again, as we've talked about a little bit this weekend, is sometimes these chargers have been put in where it's like, well, where's power? We'll just drop the thing there, right? And again, as drivers over the last 10, 15 years of EVs, you kind of had to accommodate, okay, well, I'm going to just...
not in the most pristine location.
Right, yeah, it's just like, where am I? There's a lamp post that might be working, and it's, so that has now moved forward to the place of, again, even finding a site that really works for needs. I would imagine that's one of the hardest things, is just finding a physical location.
Yeah, and I think even when you find a location, okay, great, there's power at that site, then you need to balance, let's say it's not one of our own sites, it's a third-party site. They may have restrictions on their tenants if it's a shopping center.
Oh.
We would want to be close to the power source to make it not such a long run to get power to the site. But it needs to be close for the customers to be able to walk to the amenities. So there's all these different factors that even factor where are you actually going to place the charges on the site.
There's some give and take on what ends up being done that way. So, but I think the most important thing about what we're talking about today is the end result of what you're building is serving drivers first. And I think that's something that's been lacking for a long time in infrastructure. It was just kind of like, there's a charger there, they'll find it, don't worry, it'll work for them. But you're really accommodating more of, again, an experience perspective like we've talked about all weekend.
Yeah, and that's great that you guys are actually doing that. I love it. Because, as an EV driver myself for a very long time, I have ran into those issues where it's I go to the Walmart charger and it's way at the other end of the parking lot, and then I have to walk to whatever it is that I'm doing. Sometimes it could be 100 degrees outside and I have to walk over to wherever it is that I'm going. So having a BP location that's in your actual fueling station that exists already, and you can just walk in, use the amenities, is absolutely great. So thank you.
Well, and also to that point, how many total BP locations are in the United States, for example, that are going to have charging in the long run? Do you guys have a vision for what that looks like?
Haven't got a specific number that we've put out there. We've got about 60 sites live right now, 14 in the Chicago area. But that's going to be expanding rapidly as we close out the year and move into next year as well. And
that's mostly like Thornton's locations here in the Chicago area, I think?
Thornton's here, some BP branded sites as well, and then our site at ORD Airport, that's really only a couple of weeks away, so that's really exciting. That one.
How big is that one going to be again?
That's 40
40, so that's akin to what's at LAX?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
nice canopies, and it happens to be just next to a BP gas station as well, so we've already got the amenities sorted there.
So you didn't. That's actually that's what struck me being at the LAX GigaHub is if it was okay. It was a full-scale charging station, but it was effectively like building a home too, because it was the structure that was built had anything basically aside from, I guess, a bedroom. I mean, you guys had everything built out. That lends to that length of how long it takes to then build out that site. So. To your point about the amenities being right next door at that BP location, I would imagine you've got other sites you could probably do that with as well around the country.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got some more in the pipeline as well.
So kind of rounding things out, for information for people that want to know more about BP Pulse, where do they find information most easily that you'd like to send them to?
The website's going to be the easiest. Search BP Pulse. You'll see us come up in the top page, and you can find more information there.
Perfect. Well, this has again been the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com. Matt Cranley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
This discussion is important because people, as you mentioned, Pedro, the brands that people have seen for a long time, when they start to equate that to a reliable fill-up, and that's what they've known as a reliable fill-up, is really fundamental, I think, to where things go. So for BP to get involved, it's going to be a big deal. So we're going to be answering more questions and talking to more industry experts throughout the day here at the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com.